Listeners, hello, welcome back to another episode of For the Fans. It's me, Ben, and as ever, I'm joined by Jack and Callum. Callum, hello.
We've got a bumper episode this week, haven't we, Ben?
We certainly do. It goes by Keno in the podcast, if you're wondering who we're talking about. There aren't four people here. We're also joined by YouTube's very own. It's been a busy week for me, Jack, this week. What the space? Hi, Jack.
Hello, yeah, people are wondering, why is the podcast out on a Thursday/Friday? Probably Friday by the time we get it up. Football Manager came out, so I didn't leave my house for like 24 hours.
Yeah, so Football Manager 2017 is out now. Content available. YouTube.com/DrBenjiFM and YouTube.com/WriteTheSpace. Plug. Speaking of plugs, boys, it's the FBAs soon.
It is.
We've got a week left to vote. Now, listeners, if you haven't already voted yet, tweet out as such. Jack, have you got the tweet ready to read out?
No. The people can go to the Twitter, which is @ForTheFansShow.
Perfect.
And at the top there, there's a pinned tweet. You click the link that's in there, and it just pops up with a little box. Just hit tweet, and that automatically tweets you a vote. If you're on YouTube, I can stick a link. If you're on iTunes, find us on Twitter. And if you're not already following us on Twitter, then you're missing out anyway. If
you're listening on YouTube, it's at the top of the description. The tweet is, I am voting in @the FBAs for @ForTheFansShow as the best football #podcast.
People won't copy that out, Ben.
That's what you need. I'm just saying that if that's what you need, that's what you need. So, boys, there's no feature this week because of a bumper episode, and also because Jack's only got an hour and a half recording space left.
I have. I've been too busy doing videos, and we start recording, and I realised in the bottom left it's like, this space remaining, 1 hour.
Oh dear. So what we're going to do is go through Premier League and Champions League action. The Premier League has been hotting up recently, and the Champions League is halfway through the group stage process.
So it was a good time to sort of check in on it, wasn't it, the Champions League?
Yeah, you're a fan of the Champions League, so you're making sure we talk about it today, which I think.
I don't think I'm the only fan of the Champions League on the podcast. I think we all like the Champions League.
No, not on the podcast, but in the world, maybe one of the biggest fans of the Champions League.
I was too busy playing Football Manager.
Yeah, out now. Content available at. Sorry, on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's then talk about the Premier League. We're going to kick things off with a 7-goal thriller. Hull City getting the solitary 1 goal. Bournemouth, though, on the other hand, with 6.
I think if we were looking at the sort of fixtures in anticipation of making a running order for the fans this week, this wouldn't have been the top of the list.
It wouldn't have got mentioned. Let's just be honest. It would not have been mentioned. But they've won 6-1, and Eddie Howe, future England manager Eddie Howe, he's got quite a good thing going on over there at Bournemouth. They're mid-table now after 8 games, 11 points. I like my favourite thing about this: 6-1. They now have a sort of an even goal difference, which I like. They've wiped out the debt in many ways. We've not really talked about Bournemouth much this year. What are we expecting from them? I think pre-season we were kind of saying, survival's good, second season and all that, but beating opposition like Hull. Is that easy?
Not easy, but I feel like you expect to beat them. Of course, Hull, with now Mike Phelan actually in charge of them.
It's permanent. Well. Yes, it is permanent. A good appointment? The correct appointment?
It was great until he lost 6-1 in his first game, because I feel like if that had happened
they've not won in 5
as caretaker.
Yeah. Do we think it is a good appointment, though? Like, just generally? Or should they have gone for someone with more Premier League experience?
I like the stability it brings. He's been there a while. Obviously, he's kind of dealt with the turbulent period of late. He's familiar with the squad. I feel like to bring in another manager, particularly after the transfer window's closed, can be pretty detrimental, particularly when you can't really change the side that much.
When I say Premier League experience, obviously I mean as a manager. He's got quite a lot as an assistant, but it's whether do good number twos, make good managers.
Well, I think they didn't really have much of a choice. I mean, what manager in their right mind is going to go to Hull in that situation?
I sent off my CV.
Did you? What was on it?
Football Manager achievements.
Okay, for
you
content.
Football Manager.
Sorry, that's enough. Enough of the plugs. But no, so Hull obviously losing. I did say, boys, at the start of the season, 8 points. Anyone want to tell me how many they've got now?
7.
How long have they had 7 for? Last 5 games?
They've not won in 6 now, I think. So.
Come on, Mike, you can do it. I'm now rooting for Hull in a weird, twisted way.
Sunderland might get less than 8, to be honest, at the moment.
Really? If any team does, I'm taking that as a moral victory. Although Hull, I did say it would be you. On the other side of it, though, I mean, they're not really talking about, are they? Bournemouth, though, with 6 goals, and they looked very, very good at times. I mean, if you win 6-1, you will look good. But overall,
there are a few
scoring goals.
There are a few moments in the game that I really enjoyed. The one was the redemption of Steve Cook after.
The reaction when he'd made the error.
Yeah, and he looked absolutely devastated. But then to go and eventually score at the end of the first half, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Another impressive thing from the game was how good Junior Stanislas looked, and of course he got 2 goals. One was a penalty.
He is a very interesting case, is Stanislas, because he was considered to be one of the hottest prospects when he was at West Ham, especially. Was considered to be, because when they bought him from, I think it was, did he come through their academy actually? Yeah, he came through their academy, and the talk about him, I think if you'd have looked at sort of predicted lineups for the Euros just gone, he would have been sort of in that conversation when he was coming through. 26 now, though. He's been at Bournemouth for a few years. He obviously had a relatively good spell at Burnley before that, when they had a little spell in the Premier League. Didn't really work out for him in the Premier League, but he got 2 goals for Bournemouth. I guess for a player like that, you're kind of pleased, aren't you? Because there was so much expectation and hope on him. Never really panned out. He's had to move around, and now he's finally sort of got a nice home at Bournemouth, and they're building a nice squad there too.
Yeah, and you'd hope that Eddie Howe could do the same kind of thing in a slightly different way for Jack Wilshere that he's done for players like that. One interesting thing also about this game was that other than Harry Arter, who obviously was born in England but is declared for the Republic of Ireland, all of Bournemouth's outfield team were English, which I think is also. I mean, Eddie Howe doesn't want to do too well with this team because then he'll just almost be kind of contractually obliged to accept the England job. But to see that, and obviously they were only playing Hull, but they've been looking good this season. To have that statistic is quite rare and also quite impressive considering how well they've played.
Would we be against Jack Eddie Howe getting the England job, just calling up Bournemouth, just saying I will take the England job? But I do want all of Bournemouth to join me.
There might be a stumbling block with Harry Arter, but with the exception, I mean, maybe they can pull it off. Dressed like Wayne Rooney.
No, because you just stick Jordan Henderson in there.
That's
Jack,
true.
as the
or
key.
Milner.
So,
Milner can play anywhere.
Or Milner. So. No, Milner's retired, so it can't be Milner.
Bring him back.
But no, I think Bournemouth are the kind of side that no one's really offended by. So everyone kind of wants them to do quite well. I mean, not at this stage. I don't think they've been there long enough. But you know when Swansea were kind of everyone's second favourite team for a bit?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like Bournemouth are developing that. I think by the end of the season, we'll all love Bournemouth. And at that point,
I think people already love Bournemouth. I think Eddie Howe's one of the reasons.
I like Bournemouth. I don't love Bournemouth yet. I like them. I don't love them.
I feel like with Bournemouth, so much is made of their front kind of strike force, with the likes of Wilson, Joshua King, Stanislas, Afobe. They've even got Lewis Grabban, who of course has returned and not really done a lot. But actually, the midfield three of Jack Wilshere, Harry Arter, and Sermon's really impressed me. I think they've played the last few games together. It's an unruly bunch, really, because I remember Andrew Sermon as kind of the left back for Norwich, X amount of years ago. And
the emergency left back for Norwich.
Exactly. And he was basically a modern day, past James Milner playing left back for Liverpool. But he's been at this Bournemouth side for quite a long time now. He was let go when Norwich reached the Premier League, if I remember correctly, not really kind of considered good enough for that level.
Yeah.
And he's kind of become a mainstay of this side. And it's a similar story with Harry Arter. I think he's been there now 5 or 6 years. I think he actually came through, I want to say Woking, maybe he was signed from. It was
Woking, yeah, he signed from Woking.
And then, of course, they've got Jack Wilshere, who's kind of been rehomed as well and kind of sent down to the South Coast. And I feel like those three, they don't really stand out as, a set of superstars, maybe with the exception of Jack Wilshere, but they're doing a really good job there in terms of keeping the team ticking over. And they're not really a trio of players who are that talked about and kind of the Bournemouth midfield in general, because I feel like there's so much focus on their firepower going forward because it's quite it's a bit of a hipster strike force. I feel like the Bournemouth have.
There's some good fantasy league players in that front line of Bournemouth. They'll score. They'll always score goals. I think I agree with you on the point about the midfield. And I think Wilshere is actually quite an important signing. Obviously, a lot was made in terms of what signing for Bournemouth and playing under Howe will do for his career. But as a from a Bournemouth perspective, he does fill an important role in that team, and he kind of completes that midfield three to the point where they can kind of do everything now. I think Sermon did have an excellent game, and he's been good so far this season, and Wilshere just gives that little bit of unpredictability and sort of star quality that, I mean, a team like Bournemouth wouldn't be able to acquire really in any other way. So you're right that the midfield three were excellent, and I think that kind of front six will carry them quite far this year. Obviously the question with all these sorts of teams is the strength and depth, and you know, Arthur left the ground on crutches on Saturday, so I don't think he said how long he'll be out for, but it was a kind of a precautionary thing, but that kind of highlights, you know, maybe how frail their squad would be going over the entire season.
Do you want some fun facts about Andrew Sermon?
Please
go for it. We had no feature, Ben. So
first of all, he's known as Drew, which is not that common these days. You know, quite like that. He was also born in Johannesburg.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Not expecting that, were you? Andrew Sermon was one of the first sort of products of the Southampton Academy. So like he was one of the first ones before like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Walcott. He was in the batch just before that.
Before it was cool.
Before it was cool to be from Southampton's Academy, Andrew Sermon came through Southampton's Academy. Right then, shall we move on, or do you want to say a little bit about Hull? I mean,
there's not much to say right now. Is there?
Not looking good, is it?
Worry continuing sixth in this kind of game, but they've actually not been that. I don't want to say they've not been that terrible defensively. They've not had a kind of many games where they've completely kind of imploded like they did in this game, and they'll be hoping that they can kind of limit these kind of games for it. But for it to happen against Bournemouth, perhaps a little bit of concern there. Maybe that fairy tale kind of story and being the underdogs and, you know, having no permanent manager and kind of playing up to that occasion. I wonder if that's starting to wear off a little bit on the squad and if they're starting to perform perhaps a little bit more to their level.
Yeah, shall we go on to the most interesting of matches this weekend? Or it's the Monday, actually. There's a clue for you.
That's a clue. Yes.
It was Liverpool Football Club versus Manchester United Football Club. It was the two biggest teams statistically on things they've won in the history of England, Jack. It was
Red
the Premier
Monday,
League's
Ben.
big
Red
dogs.
Monday.
It was #Red Monday, Keno. And it was 0-0. It was one of the most boring games I've seen for ages.
I didn't tweet about this game because I found it so hard to get excited about it because of the international break, because of the long weekend. Like, I was kind of looking forward to it. But at the same time, you just knew what was going to happen.
Well, did you though? Because I wasn't sure. I didn't know if Mourinho was going to come to Anfield. And you look at the team he's got, right, and the money he spent. You think part of him must look at that Liverpool defence and think, do you know what? We're going to go for this. He did the absolute opposite.
That's not a Mourinho thing, though, is it?
No, I feel like
you've bought. What annoys me is he's got Zlatan and Pogba in, and Mkhitaryan. I know Mkhitaryan didn't play, but he's got Zlatan and Pogba there, and he's literally saying to them, "Right, you're Jonathan Walters, you're Peter Crouch. Enjoy." It just made me a bit sad.
I think my gripe with this is actually, obviously, Liverpool fan, probably completely biased. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong.
They will.
But my gripe for me in this game is that at least Mourinho painted Liverpool as this unbeatable team. Yes, Liverpool are in good form at the moment. But I feel like if you spend the amount of money that they've spent, and actually if you look at the two squads on paper, it's a fairly even matchup. It's not the kind of game where you have to go in with a ton of respect. And I feel like there's not going to be many teams like Manchester United who are kind of predicted to finish top 4, top 5, who will come to Anfield and play like that. And the issue is I think because of the way the game was built up by Mourinho and kind of perhaps how the journalists kind of took the bait there, it was kind of portrayed
They do it every time, Jack.
It
they
was
do
almost
it every
portrayed
time.
as like a good result. The thing that annoys me about this is there'll be United fans who go, you know, you're mad that you didn't win. I'd be mad if I was a United fan about the fact we didn't try to win the game, because United under Louis van Gaal never lost a league game against Liverpool, and this is a United squad that has, you know, 100-odd million more
it's been
invested
improved.
into it.
And I was going to say,
trying to win the game.
And I was going to say, if Louis van Gaal last season went and did that at Anfield, I think he would have been vilified for it by not just the fans, but also
United have ever had in a Premier League match.
35%. And like I say, you know, if Van Gaal had gone and done that at Anfield, he would have been absolutely crucified by the press and the fans. But when Mourinho does it, it's seen as a kind of, you know, a master plan.
Liverpool's weakness is their defence. Why not go and test it? Why not try and push that button? Because I feel like sitting back, yes, you can try and hit Liverpool on the counter and it may well work. But actually, one of Liverpool's big issues is when they don't have dominant spells and when they don't have the ball, they do often kind of struggle with their defence getting exposed and just letting in sloppy goals.
Yeah, and I actually thought as well when they just on that when they were pushing forward, United with a bit of speed on either flank, I actually thought it looked quite dangerous. As a Liverpool fan, I was a little bit like, oh, this is not going to work out well if they do this all game. But they didn't. They let us have the ball and sat 6 in a line a lot of the time.
I've got to hold my hands up. About halfway through the second half, I was so sick of watching the game that I got my phone and got the radio up and went and started cleaning my kitchen.
Yeah, that is people don't realise that is a serious. That's a serious incident.
I was
to inspire you to clean your kitchen.
You knew how the game was going to end.
The thing is, though, right, with this, that I don't think necessarily that I'd be saying anything different if I wasn't a Liverpool fan. But you kind of pointed out, Jack, I'm not like angry that Liverpool didn't win. It was just disappointing that I'd spent 2 hours watching two of the supposed best teams in the league.
I was
just not produce a single goal.
I only spent 60 minutes watching and 30 listening. So
well, you were lucky then, because it was just a little bit mundane. I don't think anyone played particularly well. I think Gary Neville gave Ander Herrera man of the match, and while
he did play quite well, I thought actually.
He was very good.
He didn't have a bad game, but in a game where there's no goals, to give a midfielder man of the match suggests what sort of game that midfielder has had. I feel like.
I thought De Gea made a few important saves, but then
he made a couple of fantastic saves.
That's just what he does, isn't it?
We'll talk about save of the week in a minute, but De Gea did make 1 or 2 great saves. Liverpool have got to learn to be more clinical against teams that set up like that, and sadly they're not. Their ability to break that sort of defence down right now isn't there.
I think Mourinho explained his sort of. I mean, this is the thing, Jack. You mentioned that the media and everyone takes the bait when Mourinho is playing a team like this. I think they did it when he had returned to Chelsea and was playing Moyes' Man United, and it was a 0-0 draw. He fully explained the logic in the post-match interview where he was like, it's just important for us to stay in touch right now. We'll have a run of games where we win 5 or 6, and then we'll be right up there. So, I don't blame Mourinho for doing this.
No.
I think just kind of in the context that was sort of set up and the expectation around this game, it was quite disappointing to see.
I think
really.
I think Liverpool fans would agree that if you're going to play against Liverpool and play for a point or to play to nick one, that is how you set up. Exactly what he did.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this isn't Burnley, right? This is United, and you expect a lot more. I think United fans expect a lot more. Sure, you're happy with your point at Anfield, but I'm sure there'll be Manchester United fans thinking that they can't believe they're now settling for a point against Liverpool. That's just not how it should be. But as you said as well, Mourinho, he'll be happy, won't he? He'll walk away from Anfield happy, and Klopp will be frustrated. So in terms of morale, there's one team that have got a job done and one team that haven't, and I think that's kind of moving forward. That's what we can take away from it. Shall we move on? Anything more to say about that game before we whiz on? I think
not much more.
I think we should whiz on. The champions are struggling in the league, aren't they? Leicester City now in 13th after 8 games. Have lost 4. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but that is more than they lost in the entirety of last season. Yeah,
and they have more. They have more points in their Champions League group, which we'll get onto in a minute, than they do in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. So with Chelsea, obviously they're looking to sort of have a little bit of a bounce back in recent weeks and do it with some style. Leicester got to see firsthand again what N'Golo Kante is capable of, and I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch. First time I've seen him look really good for Chelsea as well.
Absolutely outstanding. He ran the game in the exact same way that he did for many of the times last season, and it was kind of fitting that he did it against his old club. But
my big hope, I guess, for Kante is the fact that this isn't just kind of a one-off against a former team, where a player gets really fired up and just has like.
I think he's shown signs of it this season. He's shown signs of it. And I think the system that Conte's just settled on seems to bring out the best in quite a few players. Hazard in particular.
Do we think that Chelsea need... is Conte's job at risk if they don't get in the top 4?
I think yes, given the fact they're not in Europe this year, so there really isn't an excuse. I don't think that works. I guess the only excuse you could give is other teams spent a lot of money too, but even then, you're Chelsea. You're a team that over the last decade or so have become associated with a top 4 spot in England, and so when you've not got it one year, the immediate expectation is bringing in a new manager that you do it again. Particularly when you consider some of the money they have spent. Whether or not he'd be sacked, I think it would depend on the context behind where they finish. For example, if they were to finish 5th. But maybe show some glimpses of good form and perhaps just look like they're lacking 1 or 2 more players, he'd get time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, you look at them now; they're in 5th at the moment.
Well, I guess the reason I ask is that any other manager under Roman Abramovich would not survive finishing 5th. But is Conte kind of lucky in the sense that Chelsea finished 10th last year, so he's got a little bit of leeway to just improve upon that.
Yeah,
and then build again.
And I think the appointment of Conte was a sort of admission that they're going to have to look a little bit more long term. And in this game, actually, one of the most promising things I think would be as a Chelsea fan was to see someone like Nathaniel Chalobah come on for his home debut.
Which seems crazy because he's been around for ages, hasn't he?
I think it was his. I mean, Chelsea fans might correct me if I'm wrong, but it was one of his first games.
We should look this up because otherwise we're going to be in the.
I'm fairly certain it was his home debut for Chelsea,
and he looked brilliant. He got as well.
Yeah, the assist was fantastic, and he played really well in the sort of half an hour or so that he was on the pitch. And I think a player like him could actually be really good. I mentioned the system that Conte had sort of adopted with this kind of 3-4-3. He could be the perfect player to play in the middle like that, and Conte used that at Juventus a lot with players like Pogba and Marchisio. So a player like Chalobah could fit really well, and I think the fact that a few younger players are starting to come through now. Loftus-Cheek was on the bench. Did he get on at the end? I'm not sure, but
I think he did. I think you're right.
Yeah, and so I think Conte will be more willing to play those players. They've had a great youth team for about 5 or 6 years now. They're consistently in the sort of semi-finals and final of the youth
Anya came on as well. There was Anya as well. There was 3 of them that came on.
Exactly, and I think Conte will be willing to play them. I think there's been a bit of a kind of admission that I think he is the one to do this sort of rebuilding project that they've sort of been putting off for the last 5 or 6 years, I think, really, since the sort of old Mourinho guard have kind of wavered and moved away. So I think, long term he'll certainly be given time. I think in the sort of short to medium term, this game that they've got against United at the weekend will be really interesting to see how. Obviously, there's the backstory of Mourinho returning to Chelsea, but Chelsea, I don't think, if you compare them to Liverpool, who United have just played, probably can't hit the heights that Liverpool can in terms of their attacking flair. But I think as an overall 11, and particularly going up against a team like Mourinho's Man United, I think they could actually be more effective. And I'd back them to get a result, I think, if United play the way that they did against Liverpool.
I think logically you would say this game would be tighter than the Liverpool United game.
Yeah, sure.
But it now can't be because of how United set up. So actually, both teams might feel that in this game they can go at each other a little bit. It'd be interesting to see because I think that. I mean, who's the favourite in that game? That's a really interesting. As a point, that's quite an interesting question. Who is the favourite?
Dead heat, I think. I'm not sure.
I mean, I'd love to know the odds. Actually, I might look this up. Jack, go on.
I will guess that it will be Chelsea because they're at home. Are you checking the odds now? I don't know if that was a cue for me to find.
I'm gonna check.
I think I would have, as I just said, I think I would have Chelsea as a slim favourite generally because I think they're in slightly better form. They've had that game where they were emphatic against Leicester at the weekend, and Conte seems to have found a system that allows players like Hazard to focus on doing what he does best, and the form of Hazard and Costa in recent weeks has been one of the things that's sort of brought them back up to the top of the league because Hazard's been really able to focus.
The odds are Chelsea at 5-6, United at 5-13, and a draw at 5-12. So Chelsea are favourites.
Very tight.
I'll be home
very
I imagine.
Yeah, I think get your money on a draw, people. I tell you, it's going
to be an interesting one because obviously Chelsea have bounced back because they did have that spell where they lost against both Liverpool and Arsenal. And obviously they've taken on Hull 1-2-0. That's a good kind of bounce back result. They've now taken on the former champions who are kind of, on their way down a little bit. They certainly think for Leicester, expectations are drastically being lowered now. The fairy tale is long gone. And this is a big game for Chelsea in terms of...
They've got a new fairy tale, Jack.
Well, what, the relegation battle dream?
No, we'll get on to their new fairy tale.
The Champions League. I mean, it could happen, couldn't it?
Shall we talk about Leicester in the Champions League? I think we probably should. They are flying. Referenced it earlier on. They've won all 3 games. I mean, you look at the group and you think, you probably should be winning all your games. But there's one thing to say that, and then there's another thing to do it, isn't it? So
they have
City,
they have the best record so far of any team in the Champions League.
They are the beneficiaries as well of the new system, of course, which means that the champions of each league, I know it's I say recent system, it's been in a few years now, where obviously the champion is a number 1 seed in the group that they're in. So I do feel like that's benefited them quite a bit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can only beat what's put in front of you. And as you said, defensively, they've looked great.
Yeah, I think the only other team not to concede so far is Atletico Madrid, who, this is brilliant, by the way. Atletico have won all of their games 1-0. I mean,
efficient.
I love that.
Classic.
I absolutely love it.
I mean, they're winning 7-1 in La Liga, so it's a bit of a contrast. But
I should say, actually, Juve and Sevilla also haven't conceded, but they drew against each other 0-0.
Exactly.
So they're not 100% records.
No, correct. Barcelona do have a 100% record.
More on them
alongside Atletico, but obviously a goal difference Leicester beat them. Barcelona in 3 games have scored 13, so that's not bad.
Ominous,
is it? Conceded 1. Was that to Celtic? The 1.
Was it now? I'm trying to remember.
I feel like Celtic scored. I mean, let's assume so for the good of the podcast.
Leicester.
Where do we with Leicester? Do we think Leicester can win the Champions League?
No.
Why are you writing them off? Why are you writing them off?
I've just closed my eyes and thought, if this was being asked like 2 years ago, will Leicester win the Champions League in 2017? Like, what would my reaction be? Because I'm like dismissing them quite blatantly now. But like,
okay, but boys, they're going to go through. So, like, it's for them not to go through now would be a bigger collapse than Spurs last year.
No, I think they probably will go through. I mean, with 9 points right now, not only would they have to lose every game, but the results would have to sort of conspire against them in a way.
Yeah, there are advantages that Copenhagen and Porto have to play each other.
Exactly.
Which is interesting.
And they've also drawn against each other too.
And they've drawn against each other, so they've got 4 points. So yeah, you're right. Leicester will now have to lose every game, and it still seems unlikely even then. And that means, folks, they would get a relatively, I don't want to call it easy draw, but let's assume, as it stands right now, they would play. I mean,
I was about to say, if you look at the second place teams in most groups, you've got PSG, Man City, Bayern Munich, Tottenham Hotspur, Real Madrid, or Sevilla. I mean, I wouldn't say any of them.
Okay, Tino, would the last 16 be a great achievement for Leicester? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think a draw like a Besiktas or even, dare I say, a Spurs or something like that might be winnable.
Can that happen?
For them.
I don't think that can happen in that round.
2 English teams?
Can it not happen straight away?
I think it's delayed by 1 round. I might be completely wrong there, but I have
so let's assume then PSG, Besiktas, Bayern Munich, Madrid or Dortmund.
You'd expect Dortmund to Real Madrid to beat Dortmund at the Bernabeu, so they would go top. So I mean Dortmund's just as tough.
There's only been 3 games played, so this is very hypothetical at this point.
We're halfway through the groups.
This season they would have had a minimum expectation in the Champions League. I think knowing that they're the number 1 seed and knowing their group, that they should get through it, and they've kind of done that. And I think the big issue for Leicester now is that realistically, they would have been looking. I mean, I was going to say realistically, they would have been looking to get Champions League football and make that like a constant thing. But now that you look at their league
is that
form,
true though? Do you actually believe that?
No,
I
think that's got to be the aspiration for Leicester. I mean, where do you go from winning the league realistically? And I think if you're settling for anything less than finishing top 6 and getting Europa League, then it's a little bit of a backwards way of thinking.
I'm not sure I agree. I think actually Ranieri sort of admitted to this in a few times when he's been talking to the media over the last sort of 2 weeks or so. I think it's almost impossible for Leicester to. I mean, it is impossible for Leicester to produce football of the same level they did last year. I mean, we've already spoken about how they've lost more than they did for the entirety of last season. I think they've actually been quite pragmatic in the sense that, and I quite like it, because you're sort of coming with the approach that, how can we enjoy our football the most this season? Right, we could grind out in the Premier League, use up all our squad, maybe bomb out the Champions League a little bit early, and we might get, we might get an 8th or 7th or maybe a Europa League, and we might call that a good season. But what might actually, really keep the fans sort of entertained and inspire people would be a run in the competition that we were never in our wildest dreams, as you said, have predicted to find ourselves in. And I think the Champions League this season sort of suits the style that won Leicester the league, the style of play, better than the Premier League does this year. Because it
almost makes me a bit sad that their group is a bit mundane.
Well, yeah,
I kind of wish they had really. I know it gives them a better chance of going through. But I mean, imagine they've got this group and then they draw Besiktas. No disrespect to Besiktas, but it's a bit underwhelming, isn't it? As a Champions League campaign.
To be fair though, I think Leicester fans would take a quarter final and then a big team, and have got to the quarter final of the Champions League.
Well, they might get Arsenal. Oh, they can't do it, can they? You get Arsenal, they might be 3 even further.
I guess my concern for Leicester is that if I'm a Leicester fan, as much as I enjoyed the fairy tale of last year, I'm not about having another fairy tale this year. I'm about my team getting a
don't be such a buzzkill.
I'm about my team having a solid footing going forward, making sure that they are, up there and riding off the success that we've got this year.
But could they be up there? Did they have? They've not got the infrastructure to be up there again.
I think say that, but they did it once, and I know that lightning never strikes twice.
That'll never happen again, Jack.
It does strike twice in the same place, but
all the time.
I feel like if you'd gone in with the same attitude last year, you wouldn't have won the league last year. If you'd gone, it's not going to happen.
No, but the part of the magic of that season was that everyone knew.
I hate to tell you it, as much as the media will tell you, it's a magical fairy tale and all that.
It is.
In this day and age, Jack. But it's real world football. And at the end of the day, if I'm a Leicester fan, I want to see my team consistently now finishing in the top 6 or 7 in the Premier League. Not going, we got to the Champions League that one time, when looking back in 10 years in the future when we're in League One again.
Hollywood, if you are listening, don't listen to Jack. Okay, it's a great story, and it would make a great film.
I don't want to poo-poo Leicester's achievements, but I feel like if I was a Leicester fan, and I don't know if Leicester fans agree with this or not, as much as it's great to be in the Champions League and I want to embrace this season, I don't want it to be a season that I look back on in 50 years and go, remember that one great season we had. I want it to be...
but I think you would, though. But I still think you would.
I'd rather my team has the aspiration of, remember that great decade we had where we were... up there, a number of years we were playing in the Europa League a lot of years.
Leicester fans should let us know. Do you know why I think you're wrong,
though, Jack? It's because Leicester aren't Spurs, who have been on the cusp of this for ages. Leicester are a team that survived relegation last year. To go from relegation to a title is ridiculous in itself, but then to sustain that over a period of numbers of years. I'm not saying to stay
winning the title. I'm saying have aspirations to try and maintain that sort of level. And I think if you look at the signings they've made, the likes of Slimani, I think that is a hint at the fact they were hoping to become a regular top 6 or 7 team, and I think a lot of people had them down as a top 6 or 7 team at the start of the year, and to say that we got to a Champions League round of 16 game but ended up finishing 13th in the Premier League, that would be a disappointment this year.
So the pod is split on this. Leicester fans, it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this, because as a fan myself, I think I would sort of prefer the sort of 2-year fairy tale rather than the 10 years of consistency. But let's see what you think. Tweet us and reply in YouTube.
I'm not saying that this season they shouldn't put all their focus into the Champions League. What I'm saying is, I think if Leicester's aspirations this year are to go, we'll finish we'll just make sure we don't get relegated again this year and finish 13th and maybe go on a run in the Champions League, I just don't feel like that's a very sustainable way of thinking for a football club.
But Leicester, to be sustainable, have to continue to keep finishing mid-table in the Premier League. That is the Leicester model. The Leicester model isn't Champions League football or Europa League football. The model
has to adapt and change, and to have this notion of we can't now finish in the top 7 or 8 when you look at the likes of West Ham finishing 6th last year.
But I would say it has changed for Leicester. They're no longer a relegation candidate. The change is that they can now become a stable Premier League side and then look to challenge for Europa League places in 1 or 2 years, consistently challenge, not just do it one off. I don't think that they're in any position this year to go for a top 4 place again.
I'm not saying top 4. I'm saying finish 7th or 8th at least.
Well, they still might. They still might.
I mean, they're 8 points away from 5th. They're 2 points away from the relegation zone.
Well,
they're just numbers. I'll take your point. The Leicester dream.
Leicester fans, let us know what you think.
I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer because I like what Leicester did, but I feel like the media playing the fairy tale card.
You're about the long-term
I mean, I still refuse to believe they were going to win the league when they were mathematically possible to win it, so I'm just the cynic, aren't I?
So can they win the Champions League, Jack, this year?
It's when Jack gets children, he'll be going, look, I know she's eating porridge, but you'd never eat 3 bowls anyway, so I mean... Just have the one bowl.
Look, kids, I want you to have 10 years of success.
The moral of the story is she should have just waited for the porridge that was too hot to cool down, then she never would have been caught in the bed of the bears.
Son, not all beds are comfy. So, just remember that.
Just a fact of life.
Goldilocks and the 3 Bears is an international thing, or people do not know what we're talking about right now.
Sorry, yeah, well, I assume so. It's pretty well known, right?
Should we move on to City?
Man City, Everton.
It's not been a great week, has it? for City.
Well, Aguero has missed 2 penalties in one game. He didn't miss 2. Aguero and De Bruyne have missed a penalty each. And
it's not been a great week for Aguero, I think, in general.
Well, no, then he gets dropped for the game against Barcelona. We'll talk about that in a minute. Everton have done well to get a point at City, considering they've given away 2 penalties. Phil Jagielka's not had the best weekend.
I think they did well to get a point, considering how wonderful the football that Man City was playing for long portions of that game was. Koeman, after the game, said they were the best team he has ever faced as a manager.
Wow, that's quite a compliment for Koeman. He's been around a bit.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I don't know if he said his entire career or player manager, but he said as a manager, best team I've ever faced. And there were times in that first half that City just looked superb, absolutely superb. And I think, I mean, a lot has been made, obviously, with this loss. It's a bit of a spoiler. With this loss against Barcelona,
whoa! I've been avoiding that.
They haven't won in 4, and I think people.
You better not be, because we've got to talk about that game in a minute. So.
They haven't won in 4, but I think their play hasn't really sort of hasn't been of that kind of form, warranting of that kind of form. If you know what I mean. I think they've still been playing pretty well under Guardiola, and they've been quite unlucky. And they were very. I mean, 2 penalties that were both missed, and fantastic saves from Stekelenburg, but you wouldn't really count on that happening every week. And I think if they maintain that level, they should be looking pretty good. Another thing that I think it was more individual performances on the side of Everton that got them that result. One moment in particular from Lukaku, which we might want to talk about, which was wonderful.
Well, we've said this about Lukaku, haven't we, for ages, that when he's good, he's very good, and when he's not, it's just like, it's so disappointing, because we can see how good he is. Potentially could be, 2 or 3 years' time, one of the best strikers in the world. Because right now, I think he's just outside the top tier bracket, and just sort of, he's in that section of strikers, or that sort of group of strikers, that are, maybe, I don't want to upset Everton fans, he's maybe a move away from being a top striker, because in terms of ability, there aren't many people that can play the way he plays and do it so effectively.
He's got 9 in 10 this season for in all competitions. So,
but you still wouldn't consider him. I still wouldn't consider him in like the top upper tier of strikers, because he's not playing the Champions League. I guess that's simple as that.
I'm really torn on Everton at the moment, because obviously they sit 6th in the table, and when you look at it, it's like, well, they've only lost 1 of their 8 games. And going into this game, the defence I would have put up against Everton, being a biased Liverpool fan, would have been, you kind of look at the teams they've played, with the exception of Spurs on the opening day of the season, they've taken on West Brom, Stoke, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Bournemouth and Crystal Palace. Like, to be 6th after those games ain't that impressive. But I'm now put in an awkward position, because they have got this draw against Man City, where it's kind of like, I still don't necessarily buy into the fact Everton are a top 6 team this year. And they've got a long way to go. I think they've got Chelsea in a few game weeks' time. I think they've got Burnley this coming week. It's a weird situation where I
should be. Well, can I come in there, Jack? Because it should be said that Koeman had a very mixed, as I remember it anyway, he had a very mixed time last year as Southampton manager against these better teams. I remember them beating Tottenham and beating Man City. I'm pretty sure they beat United as well last season, but then they lost to. They got beaten by Arsenal. Leicester beat them as well. Like, I think there are times that they beat Liverpool and lost to Liverpool. So I think they're the sort of team. Well, Koeman's the sort of manager that will get the best out of what he's got, but it won't always be consistent, which I find fascinating with Koeman.
Well, I think. I mean, you mentioned how Lukaku is maybe sort of on a bit of a progression. In terms of his career.
Is he the key to their consistency?
At Everton, but I mean, I was going to make the point about Koeman. I think Koeman is also on a bit of a stepping stone at Everton. I think if he proves himself consistently over the next couple of years, he could then move on to even bigger things in the same way that Lukaku could and should do. I think as of now, the solidity with which we've seen sort of return to Everton, I think puts into perspective how sort of chaotic they were under Martinez for 3 years, because they were incredibly solid under Moyes, and then they had that one season of kind of almost muscle memory defending under Martinez, then were awful for 2 years, and then they're instantly back to being I think they've got the best defence in the league this year under Koeman. So he's brought that instantly back to them, and I think they're such a well organised and well drilled team, and Koeman's very good tactically, that they will look good against these big teams actually, and I think they will pick up points against the top teams. I think you'd have to look at their 1-1 draw against Palace last week. That's the kind of places where they're going to drop points this year, because, as you say, a little bit of maybe lack of consistency. Maybe they don't have the size of the squad to consistently churn out results.
Are we saying they're the West Ham of last year?
Maybe
this year?
Yeah, no, I think you can make a case for that, actually, yeah, in a slightly less kind of erratic way. But
we said a lot last year that West Ham would beat the big teams and falter against the smaller teams.
Yeah, and I think West Ham...
We might see that.
Yeah, West Ham, I think, we're going to beat the big team through sort of moments of magic from Payet and incredible bits of flair. I think Everton will actually sort of consistently outplay teams at the top of the table because they are so well organised and they do have the quality. But they may slip up in those games. So I think going forward, 6th and 7th is about the spot you'd expect them to be.
Speaking of big teams, Jack, especially just there, Barcelona, they're pretty good if you give them the chance to be.
Yeah, they're not bad, are they? Especially if you give the ball to them as a goalkeeper and then decide to punch it out the air.
I mean, Q&A. Oh, not Q&A. Questionnaire. Kino, would you have done what Bravo did to stop the ball going in?
Was it actually going in?
It was probably going in. I'm confident it was going in. Kino, would you have done what Bravo did and stuck your arms in the air?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Jack, would you have done it?
It was a bad attempt to sort of hide it.
In the same context that he did it, where they're only a goal down, probably. If I'm honest.
Would you take the red card?
Yeah, I mean, I would have done a lot better job of clutching at my head as if I'd headed it.
Would you?
So.
Oh, okay. I thought.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. He made a very poor attempt to sort of make it look like he headed it. It was just
you see them get away with that, don't you, players? When they kind of jump, like they throw their arm at it and then like use a head motion to make it look like they've played it with their head.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what kind of example you could be referring to.
Two things that can be said about it: the pass he does to like clear it in the first place is just it's as if Jack, like when we saw Claudio, interestingly, me and Jack have first-hand experience with Claudio Bravo at Barcelona this year, and I mean he didn't look great in that particular game, but he does look like he's a comfortable keeper on the ball. Is that what City need right now?
The issue
is he that integral?
The issue here is Joe Hart puts that into Rosed. He just smashes it.
Does.
He like boots it away, like all out. Waves his hair in the air.
I kind of, part of me does hate that though, because while Joe Hart is quite good at that, that's not what you don't do that for 90 minutes. Like Claudio Bravo is part of Guardiola's system. He's not the goalkeeper to be saving everything. He's part of the plan, and the way in which he distributes the ball and the way in which he can keep the ball as well is part of the plan. Now, yeah, Joe Hart can smash it, but if Joe Hart does that on sort of the 4 occasions where Bravo takes a touch as a look up and picks out a player. That's the people need to realise. That's why Claudio Bravo's there. He's not there because he's good at like. Don't get me wrong. Claudio Bravo could smash it into Rosed. That's just not the way that he's been told to play. I think that makes me laugh though. Joe Hart's got this special ability of smashing it into the crowd.
My issue really with the Bravo mistake, and obviously there's a Barcelona performance we should perhaps talk about because it was very impressive. I think in spells.
Well, yeah, in spells. We'll get to that.
But the issue is, he's kind of gone to the ball and his brain's frozen. It's like someone's unplugged the controller that's controlling him, and he's just kind of touched the ball in front of him and just given it to them. And it's just one of those issues where I don't want to say the occasion got to him, but obviously in the Manchester derby, he was very, very nervy in that game.
Well, I feel like there was one moment he looked a little bit dodgy.
There was two in the first half.
Okay, all right, Jack, there were 2 moments where he looked a little bit
game, obviously, an environment he's familiar with in terms of playing at the new camp. But he just, I don't know. I like Bravo. I just don't know if he's better than Joe Hart as an actual goalkeeper. And I think my issue here is Guardiola's kind of turfed up one of the best goalkeepers City have had for, probably ever, actually. I'll go as far as to say ever because I think he's been there so long now. He's brought in Claudio Bravo. And yes, you can look at the system. And obviously, he made the mistake in the league game a few weeks ago now. And you can look at the system and go, oh, it's part of the system, playing as a goalkeeper and whatnot. But I think like the player has to take the blame at some part, and this is one of those examples where he probably should and can take the blame. Because I think Guardiola, I think he defended Bravo, didn't he, for the bizarre mistake he made a few weeks ago? And he kind of defended it of saying, oh, it's part of my system, I take the blame for it. I don't know how you can take the blame for this one. And my issue for Claudio Bravo is, I don't deny he's a good goalkeeper. I've never seen him put in a situation where he's had to make the kind of saves that say someone like De Gea has to make to save United frequently.
I think he'll get used to the sort of playing in this team a bit, and particularly in the Premier League, I think we'll see less mistakes from him over time. I mean, De Gea made similar mistakes when he first moved to.
I feel like
England.
the fallacy that the Premier League is like where goalkeepers come, make mistakes, and then get over it is a bit, as I said, a fallacy.
No, but
Bravo's
they're
33 years
facing-
old. He's an experienced goalkeeper. He's played at the highest level.
Yes, but
And
they're facing different scenarios. I think slightly different ones to what he would face in La Liga for Barcelona. He's under a lot more aerial bombardment than goalkeepers would expect to be.
Does that make the signing look silly?
I feel like
No,
that's
because
the excuse you're going to give. It's a bit like...
No, I don't think it does make it look silly long term, Ben, because I totally agree with you. I think, yes, Joe Hart may put that ball out, and that goal may never have happened, but what you don't compare is the 10 other times that Bravo starts passing moves out from the back, and I think that's sort of admirable that Guardiola wants to make that choice in the long term. I think it is a long term thing. We should talk about the game a little bit, because I think for long periods of that game, it was very odd, because City, maybe even by half time, could have had 2 or 3. They were creating a lot of chances, and Barcelona, obviously Messi scored, I think, just prior to half time, with that quite unfortunate slip from Fernandinho that sort of let him in. But other than that, in the first half, they did very little. I thought that Messi was actually quite poor, and the front three as a whole were fairly quiet, apart from a sort of 1 or 2 kind of counter attacks, which is not what you'd expect from Barcelona at home. And they obviously had to make 2 changes early, and I think that sort of hamstrung them a bit. And I don't really think the performance from City was as bad as the result suggested. I don't know what you think about that. But
well, I think after the Bravo red card, they
obviously
come out and say, but that's an issue for me, because they just didn't care. It wasn't a point. Like, they just didn't look as bothered. So all of a sudden, down to 10 men. I know it's Barcelona. I know you're the new camp. I know it's difficult, but you're in the picking Champions League. Like, work a bit harder. Like, close down.
The Neymar goal
work as a team.
To me a little bit, because yes, it's the 89th minute. Yes, the game
was very
gone
easy,
at
wasn't
3-0.
it? Very easy.
The players are jogging back. There was like the back four, maybe was it Fernandinho? I think in a line of 5 players, and you just had kind of Suarez, Messi, Neymar, and one other player waltzing forward. It's a 4v5, and they just kind of work it through you and slot it in.
Yeah, I feel a bit for. I mean, John Stone's got quite a lot of criticism, but if you've got no one in front of you working, like literally no one was trying in front of him, then he's like 1 versus MSN. What are you going to do?
I mean,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
And I think for
the
first
fortunate thing here is it's not a knockout game.
Yeah, that's
absolutely,
true.
absolutely. And do you know what annoys me though, Jag? If it was, I bet City would have been more bothered. And that's kind of the issue for Guardiola. That it's not only the performance, it's the temperament of his players. But Barcelona, remember, went down to 10 men. I know there wasn't that long left, but if City stay in that and I mean, defensively sharpen a little bit. He looks like a man that likes an argument, doesn't he?
Matteo had only been on the pitch for about 7 or 8 minutes, and he was booked within about a minute of making that ridiculous challenge. Was it on Sterling? I think it was on Sterling. And he just sort of walked off. But
underrated. not sort of obvious. You don't realise, because he plays for Barcelona, that he's a little bit of a head case.
Well, it was a surprising signing from them anyway when they signed him from Valencia.
He's done alright. He's done alright there, though. You can't really
Champions League or 2.
One thing that annoyed me about this game actually was that Messi got a hat trick, and the English commentators are sat there going, "Oh, he's not done a lot this game, but he just seems to be scoring a lot." It's like that is literally what Messi does. He makes it look so effortless to get in the right place at the right time, and when he does get the ball, he springs to life.
I
think the commentators almost sounded surprised by that.
Well, I think genuinely though they actually had a point in this game. I tend to agree with you on that point in 90% of the cases, particularly when the English media sort of watch Messi play. And I mean, he scored 16 goals in 15 games against English teams, and I think he's obviously proven that he could do it in England or against English teams. But I actually think that for a lot of that game, particularly for the first sort of 50 minutes or so, goal not including, they were pretty disjointed. And you mentioned John Stones, Ben, before. I think for the first half he looked great. He looked really, really good. And I don't think he deserved as much criticism he got throughout that game, because as you say, he was left. The attitude from the City back four, I think in particular, was quite disappointing to see. Otamendi looked fantastic in the first half when everything was to play for, and then sort of after the events that went on, and obviously the red card, he sort of went missing a bit, and I think Stones was sort of left out to dry, actually, and he did look very good in such, probably the biggest stage of his career so far. He looked good.
Yeah. Right, let's move on though. West Brom 1, Spurs 1. Did we predict that this was going to happen? That there was going to be a
You
slip up
did.
from
You said
Spurs?
they would drop points, which you were.
Did I say they drop points? There you are then. I just had a feeling. And do you know what? It was only a 90th minute goal, wasn't it? By Mr. Ali. Was it 90th minute? It was late.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, late on.
By Dele Alli. I just had a feeling that Pulis would love it. And I guess he did as well.
You have to call him Mr. Dele, just, you know.
I will say we've talked quite a lot about Spurs generally in their Premier League campaign. Shall we talk about them in the Champions League? Because it's been a little bit... Yeah. That's the word. That's the noise I would make. Jack, if you could sum up Spurs with a noise, what would you do?
It sounded a bit like a horse. It was meant to be.
Yeah, that was good. Keno got a noise.
I sort of like a like. I think they're getting going. Actually, I'm a little bit more positive than you two.
I think they've lost a game in the Champions League, which isn't great.
They have, but I think they actually did pretty well to grind out this point, and I think it will be seen as more of a point gain considering the onslaught that they faced in the second half from Leverkusen, and I think they're starting to find their feet a little bit more. I think they'll qualify, but I wouldn't be surprised to see their performances in general sort of improve over the next few games, because while they were sort of spluttering a little bit in this game, and in any other year, I think, of Spurs in the Champions League, they could easily have lost that and you know, maybe shipped 2 or 3.
No, I think you're right. Who do we think will get further in the Champions League out of Leicester and Spurs?
That's a good question.
Both probably go out in the next round.
Cheers, Jack. Mr. Positive again. Dreamer. He's
God.
a dreamer. He's a bloody dreamer, this boy, isn't he?
Have you had a bad day, Jack?
No, I'm a realist. I feel
taken
like you two are far too happy, clappy, positive.
Can I just say, listeners, the guy that's been calling for Charlie Austin in the England team for about 5 years, he's a realist.
We are going to be talking about that game, aren't we? Because he did get 2.
Well, at the space, realist. No, it's not in the running order at the moment, because we knew why. I guess you might put down the fact they obviously lost to Monaco early in the group. Monaco earlier in the group. I mean, Spurs didn't start the season particularly hot. They've, as you say, they've warmed up a little bit.
Still unbeaten.
They will relish. They're not in the league. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. The only team still unbeaten. Correct. Yeah. I think in the Champions League though, it's going to be. I still think it's quite tough. I don't think we should write off. Like Bayer Leverkusen haven't lost a game yet. They also haven't won a game yet. But they've got 3 points after 3 games. That group is one of the tighter groups, probably the tightest group actually.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at the teams in that group, I think you'd struggle to pinpoint which teams are which seeds in that group, because all 4 of them are teams that you kind of associate, I feel like, with like European football, certainly.
Yeah. Well, that's the group, isn't it? That CSK Moscow are the top dogs.
It may well be. Actually, I know Tottenham are third seeds.
They're top. Yeah, and then Monaco second.
Yeah, Leverkusen fourth. I guess, but as you said, it's pretty tight. And I'm trying to remember, does the Russian team get a first seed? It must do, because none of the other teams have won the league. So yeah, it must be that.
I'm pretty sure they were. I think Spurs will qualify. I think it's going to be bloody difficult though, because I do rate Leverkusen, and I think Monaco aren't too bad either. The big game for me is the return leg. The Tottenham Leverkusen game is going to be the clincher for me. Definitely. The Spurs lost their home game to Monaco, so they actually go away to Monaco, who will set up relatively defensively, I think, against Spurs, especially at home.
Yeah.
So I think it's that game. I think the Bayer Leverkusen Spurs game is going to be the sort of the repeat fixture is going to be key. If that's another draw, I mean, that's not really a good result for either of them. So that would be interesting. I think both teams are going to have to win it. Is my point to really secure their spot. Shall we? I mean, I guess we've spoken quite a lot about Spurs.
Great save by Lloris. One of my favourite.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
we were talking about saves. Yeah,
it might be the best save I've ever seen.
I feel like
really?
it's the best save I've ever seen if Chicharito actually puts it in the opposite corner and Lloris actually gets like his hand across, because it was kind of hit underneath where his body was.
But it's not it's not the initial contact he makes for the save. It's the fact he keeps it out is unbelievable. Like, when people talk about David De Gea being the best keeper in the league, Hugo Lloris is putting a case forward, and that save in particular, I'm not saying we should judge everything upon that one save. What I'm saying is that save proves to me that he is up there with the very best.
Has been for the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and obviously French #1. But it's an unbelievable save.
Yeah,
absolutely unbelievable. So, like, if you've not seen it, ball gets played across. Javi Hernandez comes in on that far side, places it kind of centrally in the goal. Lloris gets one hand on it, and then as he's got his hand on it, turns on the ball with the ball on the line, and kind of keeps a hold of it and keeps it out. It's I mean, if you've not seen
to
it,
sort of
find
have
it,
to
watch
have
it.
the awareness of where the line was as well while he was kind of rolling across it. It was pretty amazing. It was a weekend.
Started arguing with the goal line technology. Is there goal line technology in the Champions League?
Yeah.
I was about to get panicked there and think Ludogorets can't afford it. But there is. But my favorite thing was the fact that all the Leverkusen fans started complaining. All the Leverkusen players started staring at like the fifth official who stood on the goal line. It's like he's not the one making the decision there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's they've got it. And even if they have it, let's cover ourselves on both that ways. If they have got it, stop whinging. If they haven't got it, what a great decision by the officials.
Yeah.
They got it right.
They showed it in the stadium, so I'm pretty sure they do have it. But
yeah, I mean, he wouldn't show it if it had got in, and they wouldn't have given it.
Show that in the crowd. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
it was a week for great saves because you mentioned. Did we mention Tom Heaton's save against Southampton?
I mean, we've not talked about the Southampton game yet. Are we coming up after the Arsenal talk?
He wants to go. Will it be?
Well, I mean, we'll talk about the save while we're on the subject of Lloris. You know, that save from Heaton was Gordon Banks-esque. The way he managed to sort of
we'll save it for when we talk about that match.
He's getting very adamant.
We're gonna give Jack 30 seconds to talk about our game.
Let's round up our Champions League teams, which are in the Premier League. Arsenal 3, Swansea 2. They made a very comfortable game, a little bit uncomfortable towards the end of it. They were through up, weren't they? And then Swansea got another one.
It's kind of the Arsenal way, isn't it?
They broke the Swansea curse at the Emirates. They haven't beaten them in 3 years at the Emirates.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
it's such a massive result for Arsenal this as well because it's their 6th win in a row in the Premier League. Like they are the form team in the league right now.
Well, there's only been 8 games, so that tells you everything you need to know really about Arsenal's form at the moment. They're now joint points with City.
Walcott again was superb, and if he'd have actually
about bloody time.
Yeah, I know, and if he'd have actually finished the chance that he had at the end of the game, I think they would have gone top on goal difference. Did he hit the post? I think he hit the post.
Worth noting as well that Arsenal's get this gets fun for Arsenal. They play Middlesbrough at home in their next home game in the Premier League. They then play Reading at home in the Cup, away at Sunderland, and then they've got
Reading
a tasty 4 games.
Reading recently vanquished by the revived Aston Villa away from home.
The Amsterdam's Barmy Army. They've then got Champions League away at Ludogorets, which is pretty tough in itself. That's on the Tuesday. On the Sunday, it's the North London derby against Spurs at the Emirates. Then they've got international break. By the way, I've discovered that looking at this.
Another one.
Yeah. Then they've got United away. Then they've got PSG. Some interesting games for Arsenal coming up.
I think they'll be able to build up a bit of a head of steam going into those 2 big games. It's quite a nice sort of ramp up of fixtures.
I'll tell you what though, get November the 6th in your diary. Midday, Sunday. I guess Sky probably got 3 matches on that day as well. Bloody idiots. Sunday the 6th of November, Arsenal versus Tottenham.
Just talking about Arsenal, the sending off in the Swansea game. Bizarre.
Yes.
Xhaka.
I don't get it. I don't.
Do you think it was?
No, I don't get how you could possibly see it as a red card. I think the only way you can possibly justify is to say it's through the back and it's dangerous. But that's not how it works because both of those are yellow card offences and you don't add them together to get a red card for one tackle.
Well, hang on. But from the back, and if it's dangerous, that's not a yellow card.
Well, sorry, I think if you treat them separately, I don't think it was through the back. Well, it was more to the side. It wasn't like he came 2-footed through the guy planted with his feet on the ground. What he's done is he's done one of those cynical little trips and he's had to stretch a little bit further for it than is normal. And I think actually the landing of the player kind of getting his knee stuck in the ground made it look even more awkward. And I think
that could play a part into why it's been a red, actually.
But that was the only thing I could think you could give, because I think ultimately it's one of those ones where it is just a cynical little clip and he's just stretching for it. It's not like he's gone in stud shown and grated them down the guy's Achilles or anything. It's just, I mean, I don't think anyone expected it to be a red card. I think my favourite reaction was actually Leroy Fer, who surrounded the ref and then looked perplexed at the red card, but was still applauding it like a giddy little seal. But no, I didn't
a giddy little
it.
seal.
I mean, that's an image. Jack, can you do an impression of that?
No. There you go. That was the impression. It's too late now. I can't say no after I've started doing it, unfortunately. But.
Yeah, I'm stunned. As I say, a massive win. Obviously, Bob Bradley. I shouldn't have done that.
Looking Bob like Bradley. Voldemort on the touchline.
Did you see his jumper?
Yeah, he was scary.
He looked like a head man. He looked like a hypnotist. The turtleneck jumper.
Voldemort.
Have you played GTA Story Mode?
I have.
You know the guy that is the psychiatrist for Michael?
Yeah, I can get that now.
Bit of that in there. Maybe.
I know the Voldemort thing you're going for as well.
Voldemort, for sure.
He looks like the kind of guy who's like, I don't know, he throws a penny at you and all your thoughts vanish from your brain, like he steals them.
He throws a... Sorry.
I've been watching too much of the TV show Hero. Should we move on?
Throws a penny at... Yep, sure, we'll move on for your sake, I think.
He looks like someone who'd steal your memories. There you go.
Very dark.
Just odd. Yes, Arsenal 6, Ludogorets.
One of my favourite goals in the Champions League in this game.
Which one?
Sanchez's little flick.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was so cheeky.
Is that into the far corner?
It was. It looped over. The defender's running back. The keeper stands there perplexed, and it just lands in and rolls down the net.
Mesut Ozil scored a hat-trick in a game of football.
I mean, he scored... We should mention his goal of the weekend, actually, as well. It was just emphatically overhit for the situation. He didn't have to hit it that hard, but it was great, yeah.
If just a little quiz, boys. How many goals do you think Mesut Ozil scored for Arsenal?
12.
Just in his Arsenal career?
I mean, he scored 4 in the last 2 games, Jack, so
I'm going to say 12.
22?
He's got 26, which is more than I thought it would be.
I don't feel like... I feel like when you look at the team, you kind of see him as the supply line rather than the end product.
Oh, well, no, he is the supply line. It's not you feel like. That's what it is.
Shall I give you some... Shall I try to quantify that a little bit? For Real Madrid, he played 159 games and got 27. He's got 125 games, which is a good sort of, what is that, 25, 35 less.
About a season less, yeah.
And a goal less. So his return for Arsenal much better than it was for Real Madrid, which I thought was interesting.
He's got less people hogging the goals off him.
You've got Theo Walcott ahead of you and Oxlade-Chamberlain instead of Ronaldo and Bale. So
I will say as well, I'm looking at that. He's got for Real Madrid, Mesut Ozil played 53, 52, and 52 games, like back to back 3 seasons. A lot of football in it for one man.
International football as well with Germany.
Yeah, but I think it's because Real Madrid had good European campaigns. But even so, a lot of football for Mesut. Obviously, gets his win. Arsenal always the group stages for Arsenal. Bit of a doddle, isn't it? Really, got a good draw against PSG.
You say that, but I mean, this is the one year where they actually may be able to avoid either Barcelona or Bayern Munich because they look like they're going to win the group. And if
they are level on points with PSG. We should slow down a little.
Well, I think they can beat PSG at the Emirates. Actually, I think they can do that, and I think this is the most winnable of groups that they've had for a while. In terms of like they've always for the last sort of 4 years they've just been cocking it up.
I don't know. I feel like. Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like they've cocked up groups rather than sort of finished second.
But I think they're in the form to win the group this time and actually give themselves a chance of getting through to the last 16.
Yeah. It's all on that PSG game, isn't it? But Barcelona and Ludogorets haven't won yet.
No.
They drew. But, it's all on that game at the Emirates between the two of them. If they come to, like we're saying, if they win the group, right? We were saying that Leicester, this is going to be tough. If there's some big teams left in there. It'd be Arsenal's luck to get like Bayern, wouldn't it? Just like the one year that Bayern comes second.
Arsenal actually win their group and get Bayern again.
Arsenal win their group and then get paired off against them.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine Dortmund top their group. Who's second in that group? Real Madrid. Oh, bloody! Why did that keep happening to us? Just Arsenal fans, I'm sorry, but it's going. I mean, what we can say with confidence, it's going to happen. Arsenal, you're going to win the group, and you're going to play Bayern Munich or Real Madrid. All the best. Right, is there anything you'd like to talk about more so with Arsenal? I feel like a Champions League chat, by and large, is done. We're only really touching upon the Premier League sides because we're a Premier League podcast. If you didn't already know, did everyone know?
An English football-based podcast, I think.
Yeah, there's been no update for the England team. I mean, they played. We didn't talk about it, boys.
Oh no, because we
said to talk about.
I feel like we could kind of just gloss over that.
It's all about Southgate. He's in charge. I mean, England were. Well, I didn't plan on talking about this, but they were underwhelming, weren't they?
It
was very underwhelming. It was all underwhelming. We're not doing Southampton. It was
Charlie
very
Austin, 5 goals in 5 starts this year. One of the best players in the Premier League. Hot in form. 4 Premier League goals. If Vardy got in the team last year, Austin's going to get in the team this year. It's going to happen.
Wow.
All right. Good. I hope so. Jack, for your sake, man, I hope he does.
I think all of Jack's positivity is being channeled into Charlie Austin because he's been quite down on everything else.
He's been rested today for their European game at Southampton.
Yeah, and they lost.
Because he wasn't playing, because they're saving him for the Premier League campaign.
Are they?
No, they have priorities, right, Leicester?
Okay.
So that's a little dig in there.
I should say Mahrez was to go back to the Leicester game, the biggest indication that Leicester are taking the Champions League more seriously than the Premier League is that Mahrez was rested for the Chelsea game. There you are. Is there anything else you need to know? Now, Jack, I'm concerned that we need to start wrapping up our recording, otherwise you're going to run out of space.
Yeah, it's a problem, isn't it?
We did do a listener question this week. The question was, question of the day: why are you voting for us in the FBAs? Now, lots of you already have. If you haven't already, as mentioned, link on the Twitter. We've had a few replies, not as many replies as I was hoping, to be honest. I did realise I actually tweeted it out on my own account by accident. I didn't notice for about 20 minutes.
That's awkward, isn't it?
So we've got a selection of answers from the past hour. We'll go, first of all, we'll go with the answer. I mean, it was quite a simple answer, but it was just because of Keno's fondness of Spurs. Bias, Keno.
Oh, hang on. Like,
bias towards Spurs.
I mean, thank you for your vote, but I wouldn't say I'm...
Keno, apparently you're a Spurs sympathiser.
He didn't say bias, to be fair. He didn't say bias, he just put because I love Keno's fondness of Spurs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's that obvious, then I feel like,
if anyone else wants to, if anyone else wants me to big up their team for a vote in the FBAs, I'll quite gladly do that.
Yeah, I think Keno loves all teams. Greggles, that was who said that. Yam FM, gotta be honest, mate, not delighted with what you've replied with. Simple answer: why not? Doesn't feel like you've really meant the vote there when you've put it in that way. Calamper, you were the only show I'd heard of. Just kidding, it's because you were the best.
Hey.
I mean, which one do you believe? Valid. I feel like both are valid. And I'll be honest with you, there wasn't that many answers. One more actually by Aaron. Reply to Ben, but I'll say it again to you guys. Again, my mistake. The chemistry you guys have is incredible, and listening to you is fun. I mean, get that on a poster. Should we make a poster?
Chemistry. Chemistry. 99 out of 100. Chemistry.
Yeah. Now, as ever, you can vote for us on Twitter for the FBAs. If we win, an entire show's worth of features.
I mean, is that actually going to happen? Is that
absolutely? Yeah, absolutely. It'll basically be a pub quiz. You boys need to start promising things. I feel like we're not encouraging the listeners enough. What are you going to commit to, Jack?
I will.
I'm going to okay this, so it better be good.
I'll do a Chelsea series on YouTube dressed as a lion.
What if we win the FBAs?
Yes. No, maybe. I don't know.
No, hang on.
I will do a series on YouTube, Jack, where in the opening episode I dress as whatever animal represents that team if we win.
Okay.
Just the opening episode.
I shall repeat it. If we win the FBAs, Jack will dress up as any animal that, like... So whatever save you do, you'll dress up as the animal.
Mascot, I mean, it's going to be a bit awkward if I did Lewis again and I have to dress up as a castle. But yeah, I'll dress up as the mascot.
So you'll dress up as the mascot?
Yes, or as close to as I can.
Excellent. I will be putting that at the end of one of my future videos. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that soundbite.
Is that good? Is that good enough for you as a
Keno?
reward?
I don't really know. I've not got a sort of an audience to do anything like that to. What do you think?
I think we should. I think Keno potentially.
I know what Keno will do. He'll follow every single person who voted for ForTheFans in the.
Oh my God!
He won't do that. He won't do it.
He should do that.
He won't do it. He's got an ego. He won't do it. I think Keno should write maybe a short story about ForTheFans' history.
You know what I could do? You know what I could do?
Go on.
As
new jingle.
Well, no. You mentioned the short story. As I don't think Jack and I will be able to make it to the awards ceremony.
I won't, unfortunately.
Well, I could maybe pen the acceptance speech for the award, and we could.
Perhaps. Yeah,
we could do it live. We could do it live, and we could sort of share it. Be quite in our feature show. We could do that. Sure. There you go.
I feel like you've not tried there, Keen. I'll be honest. Right,
no. We can't wrap up. We physically can't. I know we're short of time. There's one more game we do have to talk about, and we have to because if we don't, the viewers will be really angry. Aston Villa have won an away game. Can we have a round of applause for them?
Well, Aston Villa.
See, I didn't want to bring it up. I sort of half mentioned it earlier when you said Reading, and then you kind of glossed over it. So I was, maybe I won't mention it again. But
how'd you feel? Steve Bruce is at the helm.
It's difficult to explain my feeling.
I think
after we won.
That is the perfect way to end. Keno is speechless about Aston Villa winning.
I mean, it was a last-minute penalty, but they all count.
Either way. They all count. Right, I think that does bring us to the end. A speechless Keena about Aston Villa. I mean, that's always a nice way to it. On that bombshell, I think the phrase would be. Of course, twitter.com/ForTheFans Show. You can find us there. YouTube.com/ForTheFans Show. Sorry we didn't do a show last week, but when the Premier League takes a break, so do we. Which probably should have mentioned that at the start.
Yeah, there was nothing good to talk about otherwise. So.
I say, if you've got to this point in the YouTube video, please do leave a like on it. ForTheFansShow.com for all the available links. If you're listening on iTunes, do rate the show. We do appreciate it. We read all of them. With love, with care. Then from me, Ben, Jack.
Thank you for watching as always. We do appreciate you.
And Callum.
Go vote for us. Vote.
There'll be a link in the description. Vote for us in the FBAs. If we win, Jack's dressing up as I don't know,
an animal.
If you say
Charlie Austin.
Something.
Charlie Austin.
Whatever it will be. Charlie Austin's not a bad one. Not the mascot of Southampton though. Right then, we love with care. We especially from myself for the fans. We'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.
Perfection. Keena, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.